told me last night. I guess I'm the person who needs no introduction. But I'll give you one anyway. I'm Michael Slate. I'm from KPFK Radio, and I host the Tuesday edition of Meet the Surface. And I also write for Revolution Newspaper. And I really want to welcome people to this. I want to thank Professor Dormer for her presentation today. I think it's incredibly important that people are coming out and digging into this, digging into a subject that, quite frankly, is one of the most important subjects people can be dealing with in the world today. The subject which, as much as if you think about when these memos came out, just I'll give you a brief thing and then I'll describe what the program is about. But if you think about when these memos came out, and you think about what they've done, how they've described them, the New York Times, the news media, they've all described them as memos that talk about harsh techniques of interrogation. They talk about confinement, and then they don't tell you that it means, locking somebody up in a tiny box. They talk about sleep deprivation, as if all you're doing is playing music and poking the person in the stomach so they stay awake. They don't tell you that it means 11 days straight with no sleep. Look at the pictures of Abu Ghraib and think about what torture means. And those were just the pictures that we saw. And then think about the people that you're talking about this, the people that are revealed in these memos, and the people higher up in that. I recently spoke with Scott Horton about a lot of what these memos do. They don't just give the green light. It's not that the memos then just gave the green light to torture, but the memos were actually done what he calls, quite a few of them were done in what he calls CYA memos. Cover your ass. Provide legal justification for things that were going on. And yes, there is a smoking gun here, as he points out. There's a December 2002 memo that was written by Haynes. I think he was Rumsfeld's attorney. He was part of the war council that Bush had in the Office of Legal Counsel, these lawyers that were actually marshaled up and strapped up to go out and justify all this torture. And what he did, that memo, that Haynes memo there, that December memo was actually done, and this isn't one of the ones that were revealed here, but it was actually done in relation to, providing legal justification for torture that had started 10 days before the memo was even there. This is the memo, remember in Abu Ghraib, that listed all the things, all the various torture techniques, and Rumsfeld signed off on it and said, this is fine, And he said, what's wrong with standing up? I stand up for a long time, 8 hours a day. What's wrong with forcing people to stand up? Well, this memo was written 10 days after the torture had already begun on somebody who underwent torture for the next 57 days. And this is not an academic exercise. Think about this. Over 100 people underwent torture. More than 11 died as a result of torture, and there were many more who died with torture connected to their death. This means something in the world. And this is not academic exercise. These are not lawyers. These are war criminals. And people want to think back on things like the Nuremberg trials for precedent, then let's go there. These are war criminals. These are people who have committed crimes against humanity. And they need to be treated as such. They should not, there is no justification for standing and idly watching or being satisfied with the descriptions that come out from people like Dennis Blair, the Director of National Intelligence, on the announcement of these memos. These methods, read on a bright, sunny, safe day in April 2009, appear graphic and disturbing. They're repulsive and repugnant and criminal. That's me, that's not Blair. Mr. Blair continued, but we will absolutely defend those who relied on these memos. What does that mean, and how much are you going to put up with? This is the question that has to be something people have got to stand up and oppose this, and I think this is an incredibly important step in that direction. So I really want to welcome everyone here, the speakers. As we just heard from Professor Dormer, we're going to have Larry Everest is going to speak, and Fagan Ginger is going to speak. There'll be a short break after Larry's speech where people can get a chance to turn their index cards. Everybody has those index cards for Q&A, for writing down your questions. There'll be a short break, and then people will come back to hear the panelists. And the panelists will include the